is to perform the service of the special Yom HaKippurim incense. To A, scoop up some coal, B, scoop up the incense on the ladle, C, burn the incense in the Holy of Holies. This was his first entry into the Holy of Holies.
During Yom Kippur, there is a time when there is a silence for the space of a half an hour, and that is when the incense is being burned. So Revelation chapter 8 says, when he opened the seventh seal, there was silence in heaven about the space of a half an hour. And then it goes on and talks about the incense. It says, and another angel came and stood at the altar, and that another angel is Orion, having a golden censer, and there was given unto him much incense. In the Christian zodiac, we actually see Orion holding an incense censer, a golden censer, instead of holding the lion. The lion that he is holding, that Orion is holding, is supposed to represent the incense, because the ingredients of the incense are stacte, onycha, frankincense, and galbanum. And the smoke of the incense is rising up over the altar. And so what we're supposed to be seeing is that there is a golden altar before the throne. It says that he should offer it with the prayers of saints upon the golden altar that is before the throne, and that's what we're supposed to picture, the prayers of the saints on the incense altar. And again, we've talked about this before, but the ox and the lamb hold the four horns of the celestial incense altar. Their backs are missing and the horns are pointed outwards, and the seven coals of the seven Pleiades stand for the coals on this altar, and the Orion is supposed to be placing the incense on the altar. But the incense is made up of stacte, onycha, frankincense, and galbanum, and these are ingredients that you are supposed to translate. If you translate the meaning of these things, they're not only ingredients, but they have meanings, and the meanings for stacte, onycha, frankincense, and galbanum is the rather obscure idea of the cerulean mussel rising up out of the sea as a roaring lion. So the four main ingredients of the incense were supposed to be telling you that Orion is the man who's raising up out of the sea like a roaring lion, and cerulean mussel was supposed to stand from death to resurrection, and it was unique in that the cerulean mussel would leave its body and continue to eat, but not to preserve its own life. And we hear this in the story of Jesus as well, that after he was raised up, he did continue to eat, but it was not to preserve his own life. So we see the relationship of Orion in the heavens holding the golden censer to Jesus, who is the Lion of the tribe of Judah, who will rise up. As a young lion, he crouches down. As an old lion, he rises up. That means rising up from death. Old is death, means death as well from the Hebrew. And so this man is raising up, and the idea is that Orion's holding the lion in his right hand, because Orion is a fool. He's showing pictures of the bridegroom. He's supposed to be showing Jesus Christ, who is the lion, who is the one, who is the strong man, who is raising up. So when it says the smoke of the incense came with the prayers of the saints, ascended before God out of the angel's hand, that's what we're supposed to be figuring, that this smoke in the heavens is the prayers of the saints, and that's what we're supposed to be going on here at this point. So Revelation 8 does fulfill the meaning of the Mishnah. It said he would take the coal pan, go up to the top of the altar, clear the coals on either side, scoop up some of the glowing coals at the bottom, and so we're supposed to picture the coals scooped from the top of the altar, and the man is carrying them. And when it says in Revelation 8:5, and the angel took the censer and filled it with the fire of the altar and cast it to the earth, and there were voices and thunderings and lightnings and an earthquake. We're picturing the story of this coal pan being discussed by Orion. A third part of the trees was burnt up, and all the green grass was burnt up. We're supposed to picture that first angel as being Ophiuchus, who in the apparent travel of the sun dies on Passover, disappears into the belly of the whale, and then raises up in the Pleiades. And that we're supposed to picture here, that is where he's sprinkling the blood. And it says, and they were cast upon the earth, and a third part of the trees were burnt up, and all the green grass was burnt up. This has to do with events that are getting ready to take place at the end time during a war, that these things are supposed to be seen upon the earth as well.
This sprinkle his ox, the blood of his ox, in the Holy of Holies. This was his second entry into the Holy of Holies.
And then Revelation chapter 8:9 speaks of the second trumpet, and the second trumpet sounded, it said, as it were a great mountain burning with fire and cast into the sea. A third part of the sea became as blood, a third part of the creatures which were in the sea that had life died, and a third part of the ships were destroyed. And the second angel sounded as it were a great mountain burning with fire cast into the sea. And that's really what we're supposed to be seeing, that events are going to be taking place that are going to be, and what we're seeing within the archaeoastronomy of the pyramid, that that second angel is Perseus, the first angel in the apparent travel of the sun, dies on Passover, disappears into the belly of the whale, and raises up as Perseus, which will be the second angel. And so the first angel is supposed to sprinkle the blood of the ox in the Holy of Holies, and it says this is his second entry into the Holy of Holies. That means that he is arriving now as Perseus. So we're looking now to picture him as Perseus in his second entry. It says he would take the blood from the one who was stirring it, re-enter where he had entered into the holy place, stand in the place that he had stood between the bars of the ark, so sprinkle the blood once upward, but not as though he wished to sprinkle it either upward or downward, but motioning as though he were cracking a whip. And so what we're looking at is the upward would be the little dipper, and the downward that he would be sprinkling would be the Big Dipper. Each of them have 7 stars, and therefore that would represent the 7 sprinklings. The ancient Jewish commentary interpreted ash as the 7 stars of the constellation. The book of Job mentioned under the name of ash, canst thou guide ash and her offspring. Next it says in Revelation 8:9, the second angel sounded as it were a great mountain burning with fire and cast into the sea, and a third part of the sea became blood, and a third part of the creatures which were in the sea and had life died, and a third part of the ships were destroyed. The second angel sounded as if it were a great mountain burning with fire and cast into the sea. And so what we're looking at is the second angel is Perseus, and what we're picturing is he is a third part of the soul of Ophiuchus. So we're picturing a third part to die, that as he is the creature who goes into the sea, and he had life and he died, he is supposed to be the one who is taking the blood into the sea. A third part of the sea becomes blood. So what's happening is a third part of the man Ophiuchus is dying with the lamb, wherein the blood is, disappearing into the sea, the belly of the whale, which is in the sea, and we're supposed to picture a third part of the sea becoming blood. This is a third part of the solar man being Perseus, who is the second angel. And so the second angel is sounding as he's going through the Pleiades, and he is now bringing the blood that when he died with the lamb, there was the lamb's blood, dipped into the water and raised up, and here is the blood of the sea, a third part of the sea. Next, in the order of events, the Mishnah Yoma, the high priest would slaughter the he-goat for Hashem, sprinkle the he-goat's blood in the Holy of Holies. This was his third entry into the Holy of Holies. Sprinkle the blood of the ox on the curtain. Sprinkle the he-goat's blood on the curtain in the holy place. So here we're seeing the good shepherd, now Ariga, the shepherd, who is supposed to be the third angel, and Revelation 8:10 through 11 reads, and the third angel sounded as if there fell a great star from heaven, burning as it were a lamp, and it fell on a third part of the rivers and a fountain of the waters, and the name of the star is wormwood, and the third part of the rivers became wormwood, and many men died in the waters because they were made bitter. We picture that Aruga has to have a star that's supposed to stand for bitterness. And that word means, the word bitter actually means to be embittered with a sharp piercing, to fix a tent peg. And what we're seeing is that Aruga has a star, Elnath, in his foot, and he is being attacked by Taurus the ox. And this star Elnath means wounded and slain, and this is the idea of that which is bitter, that this third angel is standing above the rivers, and we're supposed to picture the blood pouring from his foot. If he were attacked by an ox, the blood would be pouring from his foot. It would pour over the ox and down to where the Pleiades are, within the shoulder of the ox, because he's above the ox, and that would be where the fountain of the waters is in the apparent travel of the sun. The sun dies on Passover, disappears into the belly of the whale, and he's raising up, piercing the ox as well, so there's blood here as well, and here he's raising up with the fount of the waters as though he's going out of the blowhole or out of the piercing of the whale or sea monster, and since they're in the water, this water is shooting up as well. So we're seeing that this area that is called the Pleiades is considered to be the well and also the spring of water. So all of this takes place with the third trumpet. Next, in the order of events, the Mishnah Yoma, the high priest, would mix the blood of the ox and the he-goat, sprinkle the mixture on the inner altar, do the confession of the he-goat to Azazel, and present the he-goat to the designated person for the dispatch to Azazel. This is not a sacrifice. What we're supposed to be picturing then is that Aruga is mixing the blood of the ox and the he-goat, and how he is doing that is he has the star Elnath within his foot, which is considered to be a mixed star. It's the only mixed star within the heavens, and that star is within Taurus, and it's considered to be within Aruga. So what we're picturing is that the star itself is a mixed star representing the mixed blood of the ox, and not of the he-goat, but of the he-goat shepherd. The he-goat shepherd is holding the he-goat, so you can picture the. Next, we're going to be understanding the readings that take place on Yom Kippur. And the readings have to do with what are supposed to be read. Next is 29, is read the Torah. And celestially, what we see is Cephas the king stands between the poles, that the Big Dipper, if you were to extend a line to the Big Dipper, has two stars that are considered to be the pointing fingers, and they point to the pole star of the Little Dipper, and above that is the king. So there in the heavens there are two poles, and one pole holds Cephas the king, and the other pole holds Draco the dragon. And we picture this actually from the celestial arc, which is the Big Dipper, that there are two stars that are said to be the pointer fingers that point to the pole star, which is in the Little Dipper. And on the other side there are two stars that would point to the ancient pole star, which is Thuban, which is in Draco. And the Torah scroll is made to be the picture of the celestial universe. It consists of two poles, and a crown. It consists of two poles, and on the right hand pole there is a crown above the pole. Celestially, there are two poles, and above the one side on the right hand side is a crown, and it is the king. So we picture the king is the one who is supposed to be the one who is reading the Torah, and this is how it takes place within the celestial heavens. The relationship, however, to this king and to this Torah scroll holds a relationship to Aruga, that if you are to draw a line across the mercy seat, straight across, that would point to Aruga. And in the heavens, we're actually seeing then two men, and how this takes place on the earth is that the high priest also has a deputy high priest, and he apparently would be playing the part of Aruga, where the high priest would be playing the part of the king. So we're picturing the king in the heavens, in the celestial heavens, whose name is the branch, being the one who is reading the Torah. And here, as the reading of the Torah, what it tells us is in the Mishnah, what it tells us in the Mishnah regarding the reading of the Torah, it says, if he read in the garments of the linen, he would then wash his hands and feet, undress, and go down to immerse. He came up and dried himself. When he brought his gold vestments, he dressed and then washed his feet. And it said the high priest then came to read the Torah portion of the day. He would read either wearing linen garments or his own white robe. The synagogue attended, who would take the Torah scroll and hand it to the head of the synagogue, and the head of the synagogue would hand it to the assistant high priest, and the assistant would hand it over to the high priest. The high priest would stand and receive it and read Leviticus 16, and on the 10th, Leviticus 25:26 through 36. Then he would roll up the scroll and hold it close to the bosom and say, more than that which I have read before you is written here. He would then recite by heart on the 10th day, which is Numbers 25:7 through 11. He recites over it 8 blessings for the Torah, for the temple service, for thanksgiving, for the forgiveness of sins, for the temple separately, for Israel separately, and for Jerusalem separately, and for the priests separately for the rest of the prayer. Leviticus is speaking of the Day of Atonement, and Numbers is speaking of Passover. And this is important because this is where we're receiving the information of a comparison between Passover and Yom Kippur. All this time we've been speaking of a celestial event that takes place on Passover, that the son would die with the lamb, disappear into the belly of the whale, and raise up in the Pleiades and on the horns of the bull. But we're supposed to understand that this Passover is also related to the Yom Kippur services, and that's what we're speaking of the ordinances for all time of the Yom Kippur services that are taking places within the heaven. And so this is important because Yom Kippur was based upon the Hellenical rising of the Pleiades. In Star Laws and Names, it says that Moses was believed to have placed the date of Yom Kippur based on the Hellenical rising in the Pleiades, and in the apparent travel of the sun at the time that the pyramid was built, when the height of the sun was in Scorpio, when the house was seen, at that time we were supposed to be seeing also that the Passover was supposed to take place holding a relationship to the Pleiades as well, that the son would die on Passover with the lamb, disappear into the belly of the whale, and to raise up into the Pleiades. So this comparison passage, when the high priest would read the Torah, has a great deal to do with our bridegroom Jesus Christ. In fact, there was a time at the end of the year they would call the man who would read the Torah the bridegroom of the Torah. At the beginning of the year they would call the man who would read the Torah the bridegroom of the Torah. And so we're supposed to see that Christ, who is our bridegroom, is the fulfillment of all of the holy days, and all of the Jewish holy days point to him. Paul said the Jewish holy days foreshadow the events to come. These holy days also have a relationship in the events to come. But as we're now reading it, we will go ahead and read the passages. Leviticus 25:26 through 36. It said, and the Lord spake unto Moses, saying. Interesting, the Lord here is in capital letters, and that is the tetragrammaton, the Yud He Vav He, which one placed vertically shows a little picture, a stick figure of a man. These letters form a little stick figure of a man, and that was supposed to have been the soul body that was placed upon the rock, and the soul body of the Messiah that was placed upon the rock. So the Messiah, we're picturing Christ speaking to Moses